Bring the please rise. Together here today, and well in all matters before us. Absent, Denise.
Make a motion.
I'm on track.
For a motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt the minute.
That we can't. And he's just going to say a few words. Candidates, big. Energy. Hit the ground running. We a lot of
Address.
Mr. 2000. In the pothole. Tires on my car that I'm always having to get another tire for or put air in on a daily basis. And I also have issues with water runoff from the water that just sits in those holes and finds its way in my backyard. There's no gully. There's issues there. I just wondered when somebody was going to be able to, or someone was going to come over and be able to, you know, look at it or repair it or.
What is your address? Where do you live?
I live on Joseph Street, but the alley is right off of McMakin, and it leads to the little delicatessen where the people go buy beer and cigarettes and play numbers and speed back and forth in the alley. I tried years and years ago to get a sign that said, slow down, kids in the area, because my 2-year-old grandson just barely missed getting hit by a speeding car going from McMakin to Compton. Of course, he's 22 now, but that was just very scary for me. And I came here and they told me, no, you can't do that. So, I mean, it's already bad enough. We were encouraged not to park in front of our house, and then we park in the back, and there's issues back there too. But I was just mainly concerned today about the potholes, and then I have a apartment house next door to me. And when we used to come and pay our water bill and our taxes. Miss Law used to always try to get me to complain about the eyesore on the corner, and I was busy taking care of my twins and my disabled mom, and I didn't have time. And in those years, only 3 or 4 times has the visitors knocked my fence inward in my yard. And when I call the police, they can't give me a police report because they don't know who did anything, and I didn't either. Of course, now I have cameras. But no one's supposed to be parking on the side of that yard where the wooden fence is. I was told that by Shelley when I bought the house, and by my friend that used to have the little toilets on his walkway on Compton. But they were saying, you know, no one's supposed to park there. That was grandfathered in, and, I said, well, is that why the lot's not marked apartment 1, apartment 2, and like that? And he goes, yeah. But they continually, like right now, there's 2 cars just sitting there right against my fence. I mean, it's just, but I wanted to talk about that, and then the potholes that really, really get me. I don't know when they're gonna be able to, or if they're gonna do something about
We
those.
kind of went over some pothole problems last meeting. Who do we want to turn that over to? You have any comments?
So what we have going on here with the blacktop this year, last year we used to be able to go downtown, get blacktop, sit for a couple hours, wait in line, and come back and still have hot blacktop. This year, that plant has been dismantled, so the closest plant for us to get blacktop is in Franklin, Ohio. So on the cold mornings, you get hot blacktop, but when you get back here, you got warm rocks. It's very hard to work. So that's been a giant issue this year. And the cold plant is just not cost effective. I mean, you're talking paying $1,100 for a ton and a half versus $300 for 2 tons of asphalt. It's just, we don't have unlimited funds to do it that way.
So did they do it last year?
Last year we had,
I don't remember them being there since June 17th of 21.
last year the blacktop plant was functional downtown.
Okay.
So we were able to do that.
So then my other issue with the blacktop. This delicatessen has trucks that constantly block the driveway, and I always back out and go to Compton and go where I'm gonna go. So their delivery trucks will just come up and park right there and block it. But those trucks running in and out of that alley so much that as soon as you put the blacktop down, they're knocking it out. They're knocking it out. You can't even dry. They're knocking it out.
Joking.
So it's not working. I don't know what to do.
Scott, where are we at with getting the tax money off the gas to do the alleys and parking lots?
I mean, it's on the agenda this year to kind of evaluate it. I think, wasn't Joseph pretty high on the list for OPWC?
Joseph Street is,
Joseph
yes.
Street.
Is,
That doesn't address the alley, but at least Joseph Street, it's pretty high
Joseph
on our
Street's
list.
pretty bad.
Yeah,
It's
it
pretty
is.
bad. It's really bad.
Yeah, it's pretty high on
I
our
used
list.
to have grass there, and I used to have a tree there. Of course, the tree had to go because someone was pouring concrete inside the tree. But there's no grass. The tree's gone, of course. And then everybody that visits across the street thinks that they're supposed to park in front of my house, and I'm not supposed to say anything. So, and I don't. It's just too much. But yeah, the street's pretty bad. They did come by and put some markings down about 3 weeks ago. So I guess I was hoping they were gonna do something. But if they can't get the blacktop, I guess they can't do anything, huh?
Markings around potholes?
No, in the front, on Joseph Street.
Gotcha.
ma'am, that could be utilities, the
Yeah, they
either gas
came
and
too.
electric company or waterworks or,
MSD came,
okay.
because I had to call them about this water, and they're the ones that said, well, there's no gully here, and the drain is over by this dumpster, and I go, so is the water supposed to go through the alley over to the dumpsters? He said it's supposed to be a runoff over there. But the runoff goes into my yard, so there's like a cesspool there for like 3 or 4 days after it rains really bad. And I don't know about a gully, how to make one, who to get to put one in, or none of that. I don't know about that stuff. I just know every time there's a storm, I gotta have all this excess water. So this time I had to, because it was drizzling in behind my dryer and my washer, I had to call MSD, Nationwide. I'm like, what am I supposed to do here? And then they all came out and we're in the backyard and they're talking to me and they're telling me, but I don't know how to build a gully. I don't know that stuff. So I wanted to come up and talk about that and the parking issue next door and how no one makes sure that they're enforcing the grandfather clause about the parking issue. I used to talk to Mr. Knight about it, but it never made a difference. So that's all I got.
Could you have the maintenance department go over there and talk to her and see what's going on?
Sure, can check it out.
What is your address?
7615 Joseph Street.
Excuse me.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Who else would like to address council?
Okay, sure. Probably those
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I am Belinda Tubbs Wallace, 1580 Compton. Thank you again last session for agreeing to remove the cones. I am here tonight because we also mentioned, I'm looking your direction, Mr. Bauer mentioned you taking time to look over into Roseline at those speed bumps. I just want to keep that present. I understand we're going to have a work session on 4-4, which I'm very appreciative of, but that we don't get away from the main thing of the options. And I also wanted to know, are we still monitoring prior to 4-4, or are we just waiting to 4-4 and then come up with a decision on how we're going to go forward?
We're going to wait until 4-4, and then we'll run the data. Police department will give me the traffic data to see how many accidents. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll have
if we
another-
were if the monitoring was on pause, or if we are monitoring, because if we are, I wanted to publicly highly suggest, I had a sidebar with Mayor Wolf, that in the spots where it currently says no parking, and I've been kind of monitoring myself, I haven't seen many cars, but as a big deterrent, it's one thing to see a sign, but it's another thing to have a deterrent sitting there. So in the spaces that says, next to the signs that there's no parking, I'm asking City Council to consider keeping one of those green cones in that space so it also deters you. It's one thing to see you can't park there, but nothing you can't park there because there's a deterrent in terms of a green cone in those particular spaces that are already marked for no parking as a pole.
Okay.
Are you referring to the no parking here to corner signs?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And if we could get information from Roseline City Council to see how they came with those options, is there a decrease, increase? So during our work session, we already have good information. Is that fair?
Sure.
Thank you so much. And I did do a video, if I can send it to you. I went over the bumps. I went over before I came. Okay, thank you. Oh, you did go about one. Okay, thank you, and thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I thought that was her. I didn't recognize her.
Who else would like to address council? Mr. Sturworth, give us your name, please, and address. I know that's ridiculous.
Mr. and Mrs. Sturworth, 1590 Adams Road. Following up, this hopefully may come up in old business, but we're here again about the alley between our property and United Dairy Farmers. Mr. Kling, the director of real estate, finally got back to us this evening, and we had a long discussion with him, and apparently he talked to Scott, and I had a discussion with you. And anyway, he's a nice guy. Okay, don't get me wrong, but he wants to help. Okay, he understands, and he's talking about cameras and maybe putting a curb in and all that stuff. And yes, we want something done, but it's also going to take the city, I believe, to work with United Dairy Farmers and with us to come up with a solution. So I don't know what the suggestions are. He also brought up talking about cutting that alley off to pedestrians. I said, that's not the problem. We heard after the meeting up here, oh, those kids are terrible. No, it's not the teenagers, it's the toddlers, like the other lady here talking about you can't have the kids play in the alley because they're gonna get run over. There's families that walk up there with strollers and kids and stuff like that, and we just have to slow people down. So that was the one correction. The others, I talked to Mr. Redding about the trucks are not the problem with the alley, but this morning, I'm not having sleepless nights over this, but our garbage man came early this morning, about 4:30, for our alley, and I had to get up to do my nightly business, and I looked out there, and the garbage cans that we have lined up were not where they needed to be to protect Vicky's car, our new car. So I went out there in my pajamas and gym shoes and put the garbage cans back. And while I was there at 4:45 in the morning, a car comes off Hamilton Avenue, speeds through the parking lot, almost hits my garbage can that I'm behind, gives me the peace sign and speeds on. This is at 4:44 in the morning, it's still happening. So that's one thing. I talked to Mr. Kling about that, and he's gonna look at the UDF security about it, you know, to see what, I don't know what he's gonna do, but, and to quote him, he says he can't fix stupid. And I said, yeah, but you can slow him down, okay? That's what we need to do. And I have a question for Mr. Young. You have a speed bump in between your properties. Did the city put that in for you?
I did.
Can I do that? Can I put my own speed bump in the alley?
Well, can't hardly say no when, well, we have others.
Well, I don't know, he might be special, you know, but,
No,
What's that? No, it's a alleyway. I just put it in because I got same issues. Nobody slows down. And
Yeah,
we can't
nobody-
pull out of our garage because you'll get hit.
okay. Well, like I said, I want to go through channels. I wanted to try to do it right at first. But if not, you know, if I can put my own
well,
speed bump in.
if you can wait just a little bit, Dave.
Yeah, give us some time.
Give us a shot to maybe decide whether we want to put one there or not for you and not,
I thought more
Dump it
would be
on
done
you.
by now. I'm surprised it wasn't,
Well, I've just,
but Mr. King is from UDF?
yeah, Kling,
So,
Kling.
and
yes,
they
Kling.
do not want the alley closed.
Who's he with?
UDF
Okay.
said they need that
Well, the city
access.
wants the alley
We would love
closed,
that.
and it's
to-
our alley,
we
so
would
we
love
can
to
close it.
Close their access to the alley.
We'll put up a guardrail across there,
And that
just
would
not let
make
anybody through.
sense. They claim they need it. And they gave Scott a sob story about how they're losing money at that location, this and that. So we have to decide whether we want to go ahead and close off the access to UDF's parking lot and upset UDF, or whether we do a more moderate means, which would be putting traffic control solutions, whether it's speed bumps, speed humps, et cetera. So,
Yeah. I think we need to work
think
with
that's something
UDF
you-
and close that off.
well, that's not gonna happen.
Well, then
UDF
we'll-
we
then-
can't work with UDF to close off, because UDF doesn't want it closed off. This is kind of my point. So on Werner, it was easy. We had an issue like this on Werner. It wasn't easy. We actually changed traffic to one way and did all kinds of work and got grants. But the school district, when we had this issue on Werner, the school district agreed for us to put a wall up. So we put a wall up and closed off the street. We were hoping UDF would say, yes, that's fine, and we could just close it off right away. Unfortunately, they said no.
Why don't they
So-
want it closed? They don't use trucks through there, I mean, deliveries?
It's just another way of egress out of the business. These
okay.
corner convenience stores
I
live and
can
die
see-
by convenience, and so they are adamantly against
I don't think
closing.
that's truly a public alley if it only serves the houses on Perry and Adams. Is that correct?
Just Perry,
And the
Yeah,
adult
Perry.
daycare
And the
center.
adult daycare.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's,
Well,
Yes.
Which
Brings, yeah, that's a good idea, actually. If we want to abandon the alley because that's the only access, then that becomes private property, but that was just a backhanded way of doing things.
Well, then they would have to pay to maintain it.
Yes, yeah, they'd have to pay to maintain it but they could certainly close it off.
It's a long
I did
driveway.
make a suggestion to,
We could
Tim.
do
I-
that.
I got-
We could do-
I got my 2 cents worth in on the phone, and I said, now, what if UDF and the city and us split it 3 ways and extend our driveway back more into our backyards, so when the people speed out of UDF, they can't hit my car because it'll be further in my backyard. And he
I think that's too unfair to you.
You know,
yeah,
Yeah.
but then I've lost my car though, 2 times, so.
so, Ross, I have a question. for
yes,
you.
Mr. Redding.
Did the car that hit you the last month, did it make any attempt to turn?
Did it make any what?
Attempt to turn and miss your car?
The cameras show from
according to, Officer, what's his name?
Christopher,
Jones?
yeah.
Yeah, we talked to him outside here, walking the dog. He said the video that they saw was the car actually came into UDF's parking lot. They changed drivers, okay? And then the new driver came and hit Vicky's car. They backed up back into UDF, changed drivers
In
again,
reverse
and left.
and left.
But they left on Hamilton Avenue where the the
And they
license
couldn't
plate.
get the license plate of the car, but they knew that it was a gray silver SUV and a GM model, and they had a serial number on,
Off of a part.
off of a part. And it was a male and a female, and the male was wearing a white T-shirt, so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so the basis for my question is that I don't think, I guess, I think they just, we're gonna keep going straight, no matter if you're right there,
Yeah, they
or
would've hit
even
our-
20 feet further back.
Might have hit
I
the
don't think
house.
that's gonna help you, yes.
Okay.
That's the garage.
But
So I
again,
guess
So-
we're looking
but I
at
mean,
speed bumps.
You know, I'm not trying to negotiate for you, but, I mean, I don't know how much that's gonna help you
Yeah.
to
It was just a
disrupt your life like.
suggestion,
Yeah,
because I thought, something
This could
that
be like right here.
yep.
Well, slowing them down, as Dave mentioned, is really a key. So if you-
make it one way.
Well, then you can't leave. You can drive into your house, but you can't leave if you make it one way.
So,
Everybody else
Feel
does.
strongly one way or the other, whether we block it off or put a speed bump.
Well,
Can't block it off.
I would,
There's businesses there.
Justin wants to put
Oh, the daycare.
that would be my
We block it off from UDFs.
Oh,
So UDF can't go through, yeah, the people.
that would be the best solution.
To block it.
If that can't happen, we need to do something else. So,
Yeah,
And it can. I want council to understand,
yeah, there'll be a lawsuit.
it
over
won't be with UDF.
Right.
It'll be us upsetting them, which I'm fine with. I don't see a purpose to keep that open when we have everything else. Now vacating the alley would not solve it, because when you vacate the alley, it goes to the property owner, so they'd have to maintain it. But additionally, they are then required by law to maintain access to the other properties. And since there's already access to UDF, they wouldn't be
Yeah,
allowed to
that could
close
be-
off
yep.
UDF.
yep,
It's also split, isn't it? It'd be split between
would
the
be
two.
split between
So
the two.
UDF would have to agree to take on half of it. They would have to agree to take on half of it.
sure.
And I don't know, there's probably other people that are involved in it as well.
So he's gonna ask the law director, what kind of we always have to assess liability for lawsuits.
That's why
From
UDF can't put more speed bumps in their area, because people trip over them and they might get sued.
they might get
Right.
sued.
But,
It seemed like that was the one thing he was high on.
they have insurance, we have insurance,
Right.
we understand that, but,
He had mentioned putting speed bumps in. I don't know if there's a certain type, maybe if they're smaller that someone couldn't trip on, but he had mentioned that, Tim Kling had. But
he mentioned a lot of things,
Yeah.
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 So, like I said, he's a nice guy, good talker.
he's a business guy. He's,
Wasn't it? It wasn't an alley right there. Well, the
Yep.
alley was there.
Yeah,
We talked about the animal place putting bars on their windows. I said, this place is looking like Chicago.
The whole UDF was changed. It was like-
Thanks for coming up,
Let us know what's
Vicki,
going
Dave,
on.
thank you.
Yep.
thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else who would like to address council tonight? Okay. That closes out the public input session. Committee and commission reports. Business Partnership and Alliance, Mr. Young.
Had a business association meeting last week. We have our president here, Dwight Moody, and our secretary here also. Call them out since they're sitting there. Talked a little bit about the parking there on Compton, what we're doing with that, which we just talked about. Something was brought up about a bus stop between on Compton, between Hamilton and Harrison, right in front of the beauty salon right there, right by the alleyway, by the Fortune
Chinese
Express there.
church.
I guess they've put a bus stop there now. I meant to look before I came up tonight, but the buses just stop in the middle of the street. So there's parking all through there. So when the bus pulls up, they're just stopping right there in the middle of the street and just kind of blocking everything up there. And that's kind of a tough area to block there. So we need to figure out something in that area there. And they have money set aside for a scholarship for a senior at Mount Healthy High School. And so they're working on an online application for that to fill out. And once we get that information, we'll get that out there to the students so they can fill out that for, looks like up to $1,000. I think there's money left over from last year, so up to $1,000 for that one student. So I think that's about all I have, unless you all have anything. That's all I have on that right now.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Young? That's it then?
That's it.
Okay. Beautification is Ms. Lingo. She's not here, so we'll move on. Economic Development, Mr. Young.
Well, we'll do it again. We had our first meeting tonight, before this meeting, talking about the 7508 Hamilton Avenue, that would be the antique mall. Was up there today with Justin and went through the roof of it. Definitely some roof issues. There are a lot of issues up there, so we're looking for some directions to go on that. So we're putting together a group to go down and look at the structure of the property, see where that's at, and kind of get some ideas what to go forward with that. So that's really about all we talked about tonight, and that's really about all I really have right now. That was a lot. Did a lot of photos today and a lot of looking at it, so it was a lot to take in a short time. So that's really about all I have right now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Young. Finance, Mr. Parsons.
No report?
Did you have a second one?
Park Commission, Ms. Dosa.
Thank you. We had our Park Commission meeting this week, and we discussed the issues with the park and play structure. Justin had came before council before and told a little bit about what was happening with the park play structure, but we went out and looked at it, and the risk assessment person came out and determined that it was unsafe and it needs to come down. We initially Justin put up orange fencing to kind of ward it off until we can come back to council to present it to council to have a unanimous decision to take it down. There's a lot of things that cannot be replaced because of the age of the structure. And there's a lot of things that need to be done to make it safer, but it's just not gonna work because the parts can't be replaced. Correct, Justin?
Yes, and there's some design flaws, I guess you could say, that weren't thought of back in the 90s when the thing was built, that can't be, they're not grandfathered in, so to speak. So, like, head entrapment issues, heat through things that heads won't, so essentially, someone can get hung up by their head. Situations on the playground where that can happen, things like that.
And several of the slides are cracked, can't be repaired, can't be taken apart to replace. The parts we can't even get the parts anymore, from my understanding. So, I present that to council because I can't make that decision. I need for everyone to agree that it's unsafe, and from the information he provided to us before, and just to unanimously agree to take it down. We tried to ward it off until we could figure out something else to do, and he put up an orange fence, and people are going right over the orange fence and getting on the structure. And I'm just worried about the liability to the city if someone gets on there and gets hurt.
Do you want to cover this in new business?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So in new business. But that's, and then, so with that being said, we talked about ways in which we could try to have, help get funding or grants to replace the structure once it's down. So I'm gonna ask if maybe We Thrive could help. I was gonna ask Scott about whether or not we have any COVID money that could help towards that. So that is all that I have right now for Park Commission.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Safety, Mr. Redding.
Nothing new to report, just some follow-up. If you all recall last month, the shooting incident, I'll say around the Compton and Elizabeth intersection. No update on that. Nobody's talking. And then on getting some additional information concerning Clovernook Apartments and fire runs, still working on gathering that information. And then finally, just in my thoughts, I know in the past we've had a block watch, but it seems to have become inactive, and I'm just trying to figure out ways to revitalize that, so throughout the community. So more to come on that. That is all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Redding. Questions? Streets, Ms. Rissel.
Well, I propose we have a meeting before our next council meeting to go over the speed humps. I'm gonna try to get out with Justin, hopefully Thursday. The gentleman's coming in town with information on the speed humps, and hopefully I'll be able to see what that's about.
April 4th.
Hopefully that'll work.
April 4th.
Yes, April 4th, the next meeting.
What time would that be? 6:15, 6?
Good. That's fine.
Okay.
Anything else, Peggy? Okay, I'll bring this up. I was going up Harrison Avenue this afternoon, and the contractor that's doing Compton Road is starting to bring equipment in and unload it. They had a paver there, rollers, and so forth, so they may be getting ready to start back on Compton Road.
Yay.
Just, Ross, one thing for Peggy, I haven't forgotten about you, was just out of town over the weekend, so, so we'll get you caught up.
Okay, moving on then to schools, Mr. George.
Couple things. As of yesterday, actually, Mount Healthy City School District implemented a new access control system to improve security and safety. And you can go to the Mount Healthy City Schools website to find more information about this. But essentially what it is, it's a system that will ID visitors and guests as they come into the school. And the system is tapped into databases, for example, the National Sex Offender Registry, things like that. So it'll kind of screen people immediately as they come into the school. Something else, and this is kind of close to home with me because I was a graduate of Mount Healthy and a choir student all the way through. But last week, the Mount Healthy choir students, on behalf of Ohio Arts Council grant, went up to Central State University and performed. And I know our choir director's a graduate, Everett Moore, think very highly of him. So he's a graduate of that school. So I just think it's really cool that they're getting out, getting some exposure
Absolutely.
into the community. And
Cool.
yeah, it definitely was a part of making me who I am. So I think that's really neat. But that's all I have. And you can find out more information on the school district website about those.
Okay. Thank you. It's a little disconcerting for me to hear about, I mean, it's wonderful to hear about the safety things they're doing.
The
But
fact
they
you
didn't even
have
lock
to,
the high,
yeah.
they didn't even lock the doors when I went to school.
Yeah.
Grade school, high school, none of them. Okay, library, Ms. Dosa.
Thank you. Just a couple reminders. The Mount Healthy Branch Library is still a location that is distributing rapid at-home COVID test kits if you would like to get one. They still have tax booklets and forms available for tax preparation. Also, just to remind you that the AARP and United Way are offering tax help in preparation of at some of the locations, not Mount Healthy, unfortunately. But if you need help or assistance, you can look on the main website and look under tax help at library services and locate a branch that would have those services for you. And lastly, they're still serving after-school snacks for the youth from Monday to Friday, 3:30 to 4 p.m. And that is all I have.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Okay, then we'll move on to the mayor's report. Mr. Wolf.
Yeah, I have a few different things. First of all, with the aggregation, some of you may have been contacted. I was contacted by quite a few. I know Scott was contacted by quite a few. Duke sent out emails to people that were part of the aggregation saying, thank you for signing up to rejoin us.
Yeah.
The people that didn't sign up to rejoin them. And I'm sure, Kathy, you got a lot of calls, a lot of people upset. Apparently, they're automatically doing this whenever an aggregation contract expires. It's a little misleading. They did send out an updated one yesterday and today, so people should be getting those. That now says, it looks like you are back in your community aggregation program. So it is being corrected now. It's very frustrating and confusing, but I want to make sure the residents understand that you are part of the aggregation program unless you opt out. You don't have to do anything, despite what that initial contact saying you chose Duke. That's not accurate. So hopefully that email will straighten it out now. The next thing, We Thrive had a meeting tonight. There's a lot going on. So I previously mentioned that I helped with the application process for a grant for the wetlands that they were successful in getting. They got a little over $8,100, and they've already removed almost all of the invasive species in the north end of the wetland park. They did also, well, they're gonna be working on trail stuff, bat boxes, all kinds of stuff. They got a lot going on. So this is gonna be going on over the next several months. Keep an eye out for that. There is a new project underway with Pastor Whaley at the church right at the corner of Compton and Perry right here. They actually have a mental health program now, and they actually have a clinician that's in there. They actually have a psychiatrist on that has an office there for psychiatric help and mental health services, and they're teaming up with Tick and Farm and We Thrive to start a comprehensive mental health program in the community, and they're going to invite Mount Healthy Family Practice on board as well. So that's terrific, and to actually have psychiatrists there would be great. So that's being worked on right now, and we're directing some funding that way. There's a $3,700 grant from We Thrive, and then a big grant available from Interact for Health that they're applying for as well. They're the ones that gave our community almost $50,000 when we started We Thrive. So we're really optimistic that that they'll get that. In the conversation, we also brought up the park, which is funny. It's great. So Nature Works, in the past, this was a long time ago when we did some park upgrades, we actually went through We Thrive. We applied for a Nature Works grant through the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, and that's how we funded the track around the park. And they actually have that same grant is up right now where we can apply for it. This is round 29.
Okay.
We can get up to $150,000 if we put in a 25% match.
Okay.
So we can really get bang for our buck. This is for playground equipment.
Great.
So this is eligible. The downside is we have to apply by June 1st. It's not a hard application. I'm willing to put in some work on it and work with anybody. That is something we can look at. It's due June 1st, but then they won't announce the winners until August.
That's okay.
At that point, it works on reimbursement. So we would have to purchase stuff and they would reimburse us. Downside is that means no playground this summer,
I know, unfortunately.
which is bad, but if we could get $150,000 worth of play equipment, hopefully that'll be worth the payoff. So I do think we need to look at that. So I'll talk to you about that, and we can see if there's anyone with public health that can help us apply.
Okay.
And we'll see. So they will, yeah, up to 75%, which up to $150,000 eligible. And then the last thing is, of my 2 appointments for the CRA Housing Council, I asked 3 people of their interest. 1 immediately jumped to it, so I am appointing her. I have 2 other people, and I'll tell you who she is in a second. I do have 2 other people interested, but they're trying to figure out if they have time. I told them it shouldn't be much of a time commitment at all, maybe a couple times a year. So I'm really hoping to get a response soon. I purposely asked 3 people that are renters, because I think it's important that we have some people with rental experience on this board. The first person who jumped on it is Desiree Hosley, who is really an amazing resident that we have. She is the one running the open mics right now with Jacqueline, who was up here another night. Her experience is with AmeriCorps and the Volunteers of America. She worked with Urban Appalachian Council. She is on the board of Cradle Cincinnati, and she's the co-director of Mount Healthy Alliance Zone 231 right now. She lives at Lake of the Woods as a renter. I think she brings some good experience from a wide variety of background to this board. She also is a graduate of the City of Cincinnati City Council School, which is a program that you go through if you're interested in public office someday, where they actually teach you about open records and they teach you about executive session and all the procedures and policies that elected officials have. So I think she would be great, and she wants to do it. So she is my one of two appointments, and I'll have a confirmation by the end of the week on the other one. It's between two people right now. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Questions for the mayor? Okay, moving on. City Manager, Mr. Bauer.
I'll just add a little bit to the UDF discussion. I'm going to pull the police data from that location. Something that could be helpful is if just somehow we could prove that people are cutting through with data. I think everyone pretty much agrees that is what is happening, but once you start talking about forcing people to spend money to fix a problem, they want a little extra data. So I'll pull all that information with our police department, kind of see what we can get and put together. He did at least seem high on speed bumps, but you know, he's kind of beholden to the actual property managers and the owners and stuff like that. So who knows if he can even deliver on the speed bumps? You know, I'm with you, but I'll keep up with that relationship and just kind of we'll see where it goes, and I'll keep you up to date. So let's see. I had mentioned before the SAFER grant for the fire department that was successfully submitted last week. That's for 2 full-timers. It's probably about $130,000 to $140,000 a year for 3 years that it would cover. I believe it's 2 or 3 years. So a good chunk of money that would get us 2 additional full-timers. So I'm not sure the timing on when we'll hear back if we're accepted, but that's at least been submitted. We're waiting to hear back. Greg, I should have asked you this before. Did we have any updates on the May 18th event? Timing or anything like that? We don't. Okay. So May 18th is still what is scheduled for the open house. That's where the kids will come, and I guess a couple council members. I think maybe you two have done it in the past. So it's that event that we're starting to plan. Once we get more details, I'll bring those to you. I've got some information on the levy. I'll wait till we get to that, you know, continuing versus renewal versus replacement. Other than that, that's really all I had, so.
Thank you, Mr. Bauer. Questions? Okay, Finance Director, Melanie Branditz.
Just have the February month-end reports were in your packet. If you have any questions, let me know.
Okay, thank you. We have, then move on to the ordinances and resolutions. We have no ordinances, first or second readings. We have 2 resolutions that need a second reading, and 1 resolution that needs, well, it's asked for emergency. Need to have it tonight, that newest resolution. But anyway, let's get started. On the second reading of Resolution 23-1201. A resolution of necessity for levying a tax exceeding the 10 mil limitations for police services. We had a first reading on this at our March 7th,
So my homework from last meeting was to kind of figure out what the difference between the 5-year versus a continuing versus a replacement. Basically, the continuing and the renewal, which is what we used to have where every 5 years it had to be renewed. You get the certification, so if you have 1 mil and it's worth 100,000, it's never ever going to go over 100,000. It's probably going to fluctuate between 90 and 100, regardless of what, you know, property values double or triple. You're stuck at that original certification. So I mean, you will at least max out at what it is, but you'll never go over. The replacement, it gets you the new assessed value of the property. So if property values go up, you would want to get a replacement or just an additional levy that would get you the new certification rate.
Yep.
So that is the difference. So if we do what's the first one here, the 5-year. So in 5 years, it would go up for renewal. It would still stay at whatever they certify it at right now, which would probably be around 130,000. So in 5 years, it would still get us only 130,000, even if property values double.
But we would have to pass it again.
Correct.
Yes.
And the continuing will stay on the books for forever, but it will, again, only be at the max amount, regardless of property values or how high they go.
Yes.
The only way it goes up is if you have substantial new construction.
Correct. Well, I think your certification amount that they give you, so the last time we did this was 131,000, I think. I don't know that it matters.
I mean, if if somebody built a new street in Mount Healthy with 10 new houses on it, that would qualify for it to go up no matter what. At least that's what I got from calling the auditor's office. That's the only way it would go up.
Okay. I do not know about that one.
And on a particular house, by house, if I would put on a $50,000 addition, my property value would go up, my tax would go up as well. That's new construction. But that's minimal. I mean,
Sure.
we're only, $50 a year, we're not
Gotcha.
talking big dollars. So,
Okay.
so that's the only way it can go up over the certified value.
Okay, so this 1201, which one is this? This is a continuing or?
01 is the 5-year. So I guess really for both of these, you're going to be stuck at the capped amount of whatever they certify at unless there's significant new construction, either one of these. So really the difference is, do you want to put it on the ballot every 5 years? Or do you want a continuing, which you think is most likely to pass in the first place?
So one of these we need to pass and the other one we can just let go by the wayside.
You could pass them both and get them both certified. Again, it's the next step after we get certified.
That we have to,
That's when you're passing what you want on the actual ballot. This is just a certification. It's just, we'll get a number from the county, and it's on us to do the next step.
Okay.
So if you do want to do them both, that's fine.
We're going to have to decide sooner or later which one
Yeah.
we want, so I think we
Right.
might as well just do that.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Your opinion is to certify them both?
No, just to decide which one we're going to do and do it.
How's everybody feel? 5-year or the continuing?
So, yes, again, continuing gets you this $130,000 from here to 20 years from now. Replace, if you'd go 5 years, you can either refile for a renewal or for a replacement. Replacement will get you more money in 5 years. But you got to go to the voters.
Chance of not passing.
Yep.
My only caveat, because I would agree with you, I think continuing's safer, better, long-term, is that police levies usually pass. And we're changing this from a general levy to a police levy. Typically passing a renewal for a police not a renewal, a replacement for a police levy is not hard. School levies are hard, general levies are hard, police levies typically aren't. So that's the only caveat, but I look your way as well, it's your decision, just wanted to throw that out there.
I'm in favor of the continuing, and then at some point, if we need more money, 10 years, 12 years from now, then we put a new levy on, an additional 1 mil, additional whatever. And we would still get this plus that.
That's what I think.
Go with the continuing, council?
Yes.
Okay, so the 1201 then we're not going to pass, is that my understanding?
Right.
Table it.
Table it.
So then we go to resolution number 23-1202, which is the continuing levy. A resolution of necessity for levying a tax exceeding the 10 mil limitation for police services. Questions, comments, council? We had the first reading on the 7th of this month. This would be the second and final reading. So I'd ask for a motion to adopt.
I make a motion to adopt resolution number 23-1202.
Okay, Ms. Stosa has made a motion to adopt. Do I have a second?
A second.
Mr. Parsons has seconded. Roll call, please.
Mr. Parsons?
Aye.
Mr. Redding?
Aye.
Mrs. Stosa?
Aye.
Mr. George?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Mrs. Rissel?
Okay, by a vote of 6-0, resolution number 23-1202 is approved. Then there's a new levy that you just had on your desk tonight. It's resolution number 23-1203. And
the first reading.
It's a mouthful, so I got to get started on that. An emergency resolution providing authority to the law director to execute the subdivision and special district settlement participation forms for the Teva, Allergen, CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart settlement. Participation agreements pursuant to the One Ohio Memorandum of Understanding and placing any received funds in the city's One Ohio Fund.
So Paul-
23-1203.
So apologize for the short notice, just got this yesterday from our law director. We've done this before, I forget who the settlement was with, but it's for the opioids. I believe it's about $1,100 a year that we were gonna get for the next 10 or so years. This is basically the exact same thing, other than the people who are settling, the companies that are settling are listed there, they're different. Don't have an amount that it will be. This is basically us just agreeing to the settlement and whatever those funds end up being. And they'll go in a separate fund that's to be used to combat opioid addiction. We already have a fund set up, so I mean, it's, again, it's just approving that we will agree to this settlement and that we'll accept the funds and use them in a particular purpose. So.
Yes, we did pass one last year, didn't we? Yes. Questions or comments, council?
Is there a requirement to use this money for a particular purpose?
Yeah, the One Ohio Fund, that's the same fund that we set up in the last one, and it has criteria. I don't have them in front of me, but in general, it's meant to combat opioids. So I think Narcan
So, yeah, the
is one
fire
of the
department
typical
can use it
purchases.
to-
Yep. We haven't spent any of we've received one payment so far. We haven't spent it yet, but that's the intention.
I guess police department carry Narcan as well.
I'm sure there's other uses as well. That was just the obvious one that was brought up when we first talked about it, but
And you want this passed tonight? It's due by the end of the month? Is that what I
yes,
heard?
please.
Okay,
Make a motion to waive the first reading.
okay.
Can I
Mr.
amend that? Make a motion to waive the 2 reading rule. Sorry, you said waive the first reading, so I just
Sorry.
want
Okay.
Thank you for catching
don't want to
that.
get too,
Mr. George has made a motion to waive the 2 reading rule. Second,
I'll second it.
Mr. Young? Roll call when you're ready.
Mr. Parsons?
Aye.
Mr. Redding?
Aye.
Mrs. Dosa?
Aye.
Mr. George?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Here, aye.
Mrs. Rissel?
I'm here too.
Okay, by a vote of 6-0, the 2 reading rule has been suspended. Any other questions before we move on, council?
nope. I make a motion to adopt Resolution 23-1203.
Okay, Mr. Redding has made a motion to adopt.
Second.
Mr. George, seconded.
Mr. Parsons?
Aye.
Mr. Redding?
Aye.
Mrs. Dosa?
Aye.
Mr. George?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Mrs. Rissel?
Okay, by a vote of 6-0, resolution number 23-1203 is approved. That is all of our legislation for this evening. Old business.
I actually have one piece. A gentleman that came up here, DeAndre, a while back with his son, said he was gonna run for council. He actually pulled petitions to run for school board instead. Just wanted to let you know that, so he's not gonna be running for council, but he is gonna run for school board.
Okay, he's involved somewhere, that's good.
Yep.
Any other old business, council? New business.
Do we need to do the members of the CRA commission or whatever it's called?
Yep. CRA Council, Housing Council.
Council, CRA council?
Council, yep.
Doing that under old business?
Yeah. We talked about that at the last meeting.
Still in, sir?
Yeah, I guess. I meant to call you and yell at you about it.
Do we need,
That's if anybody wants me.
well, we just nominate or just make a motion to, make a motion for the certain people, I guess. I don't even know what this thing's called. CRA what council?
Housing Council.
Housing, CRA Housing Council.
Okay. I will make a motion, the council appoint Mr. Redding and Mr. Bittner to the CRA Housing Council.
Okay. Mr. Parsons has made a motion to appoint Mr. Redding and myself, Mr. Bittner, to the CRA Housing Council. Do I have a second?
I do.
Said second.
Mr. Young, that's seconded. Just a voice vote? Or,
That's fine.
okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Darn you guys. Thank you. Okay, well, thank you. Any other old business? New business?
A vote for the play structure to take down the park. Can we just do a voice, or does it have to be individual?
Well, before we do that, I think we can do a voice vote on that.
Okay.
Basically, any questions or conversation? This is about the playground equipment. What is the title of this gentleman that says our equipment's faulty?
Assessment risk.
Assessment
The,
risk?
Our insurance risk assessment, yeah.
Okay. And if we don't do something to protect ourselves, they won't cover us when somebody gets hurt, right?
Are there any pieces of it that we could keep up? Like, I know,
The swings,
It's all
maybe.
kind of intertwined and supports each other, so to speak.
Not that big piece.
So,
just have the swings remaining, or,
Swings and then what we call the tot lot, the stuff for the very little kids.
okay,
So there'll be one slide for
yeah,
this size kids.
right.
is that the little blue one?
Yeah, the little blue swirly slide.
Okay,
The big structure in the middle is what.
okay. And we can leave the swings up?
Yes.
Okay.
So the question before us, council, do we take it down? Remove the risk to the city?
Just a liability until
It's a liability, yes, it is.
It is.
And we won't be covered by our insurance if we don't do something to protect ourselves.
gotta cover ourselves.
Well, he's from our insurance.
We
He
need to
told us
make sure we get new equipment as ASAP. Okay, any other conversation about that? Questions?
Can I just say that I hate the fact that we have to do that?
Absolutely.
But I think that it's the best thing to do. Summer's coming, and not having a structure or something for these kids, it breaks my heart, but
Open up your wallet, let's buy a new one.
I don't have $100,000.
Ross?
Yes, Mr. Redding.
Mayor, can you provide more clarification on that? We could put it in, put a new one in. I don't know how long that would take, obviously, with a few months. But then we could go in and get a retroactive grant, basically. No, we
No.
can't spend any
No,
money
it
until.
works- The grant works on a reimbursement basis, but you have to be approved for that grant first, and that won't be announced till
Okay.
August. Now, that's only one grant. There are many grants out there for
Right, we
playground
talked
equipment.
about,
So that's just one avenue.
Yes.
In fact, we find another avenue for this park, I think we do the NatureWorks grant for Heritage Park.
Park, yes.
Or not Heritage Park, for
Wetlands,
wetlands,
yep.
replace the one there. I think need to look at all avenues and try to get something in there by summer.
because,
But I know this is out there, and we should have
okay.
good luck with this one.
yeah, for about 2 minutes, we talked about potential CDBG. And that's always something we could
Yeah.
consider the path.
So, yes.
Wasn't when, and I had talked to Mimi about this, she said at one point that they were working on a grant from Duke, and that didn't get finished before she left. So I don't know if they still do that.
From Duke?
Yeah.
We got a Duke grant for small business coaching.
She just said that she was working on it before she left, and it didn't get finished, but it was for, like, signage in the park and for stuff for the park.
I don't know about that. Justin was saying that a lot of these companies will actually show you links straight towards
Yeah.
funding opportunities.
Yeah, some of these places at websites actually have information about grants right there,
I kind of compared it to roofs. A lot of these roofing companies will come out and say, oh yeah, you got damage. We'll file an insurance, right? Some of these companies are kind of that way, not as easy, but they point you in the direction to get the funding to buy their equipment. So I'm pretty I shouldn't say confident. I'm pretty confident we would get the NatureWorks grant. That's longer term.
But we can
Hoping
also
we could
apply
get
for
something
other
in the
grants.
meantime, yeah.
Okay.
we could put something in for the summer.
Yeah.
And if we get the grant,
That's true.
put an
Something
additional,
bigger.
an
True.
additional piece of equipment.
That's true. Even if we just get a slide or two,
Yeah.
that's true.
But I think, from my understanding, if we did that, don't they have to be anchored or something to that effect? From the report, they have to be anchored. So we'd have to have someone come out and actually. Uh-huh.
Okay, let's get back to the original question. Are we going to have the maintenance department take this down to protect the city? Everybody in agreement to that? I don't think we need a voice vote on that. It's just everybody nod their heads and
Need a motion?
Can we make a
I
motion?
make a motion.
you can make a motion, yeah.
I make a motion that we take down the park play structure for safety and liability reasons.
Okay, do I have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Mr. Parsons is seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Now you got some work for tomorrow.
A little bit longer tomorrow. We'll get her down.
Take that backhoe down there and just,
Take it down and put it in the potholes.
or melt it down and make speed bumps.
Yeah, right.
Just move the whole thing over to the UDF entrance.
Okay, any other new business, council? Denise is not here. Anybody want to, Miss Rissel?
Yeah, adjourn.
And what is that about now?
Adjourn the meeting.
You'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Ms. Rissel has made a motion to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Dos is seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.